If you've ever been disillusioned, disappointed, or discouraged in your search for love, and you know there has to be a better way to find the healthy, soul-filling love you've always longed for, then you've discovered the podcast for you. I know, as Ken's work personally has led me to find the love of my life. So here's your host of Deeper Dating, Ken Page.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Deeper Dating Podcast. I am Ken Page. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm the author of the best-selling book, Deeper Dating, the creator of the Deeper Dating Intensive, and your host on this podcast. And today, I'm really excited to talk about the North Star question that truly will transform your search for love, which means the future for the rest of your life. So before I dive in there, let me just say that if you want a transcript of this episode, just go to deeperdatingpodcast.com. And if you go there, you can also get my free ebook, The 5 Keys to Deeper Intimacy, pieces that have gone viral on Psychology Today and elsewhere, action steps that you can take, a quick encapsulation of the whole deeper dating journey. Or you can just go to deeperdatinggifts.com and be able to pick it up for free there. So let me jump in. This is, to me, what we never get taught. And the profound loss of time that we have, and the profound amount of grief and suffering that we have, and the missed opportunity for healing that we experience as well is just profound by not having this be the North Star question for you and everyone in your search for love. So let me tell you what that question is. Well, here's what I want to do. I want to tell you what the question is. I want to tell you how it will shift things, how it will connect you to a superpower of yours, how it will save you vast amounts of pain and suffering, and how it will kind of make you a heat-seeking missile and a magnet for beautiful, soul-filling love. And it will also, and this is another amazing thing, and these things are all true because they're based on the deepest principles of intimacy and human healing. I've been a psychotherapist for 40 years, and this is kind of a map that I have created that has changed countless people's lives, including my own. So the other thing that happens as you make this your North Star question is that you will heal your attachment style and move to a more secure attachment style and away from an anxious and avoidant attachment style. And I'll explain why that's true and how that's true. So, the North Star question. The North Star question is, and it's got a few corollary pieces to it, but the essential question is this: does my heart or does my soul feel safe and seen in the presence of this person? If you organize from today on your search for love around that principle, you will have a cascade of healing and positive experiences that come out of that because you will be aligned. As long as that is not your question, like for me, I know that for decades, my question was something like this: is this person going to be attractive to me? Are they attractive to me? Are they attracted to me? And can we keep going here? Those were my questions. And then, I hoped for good character. And so that kind of way of doing it is like living on a wobbly ladder. It creates fear of rejection. It brings up this question again and again that's like, am I missing something magical? Am I missing that it? What's wrong with me? Why does it never work? What we're not realizing is that we are not, as I've said so many times, the great Christian mystic, Meister Eckhart, said there is a way to make a perfect circle, and it's to start with the center. when you don't start with the center, which is being your authentic self and asking this very question, you will always be off balance. And a side effect of that off balance is that you will make choices that are not as good for you in your search for love. So this is a spiritual, emotional, psychological healing process that actually heals you while it leads you so much more quickly to healthy, real love. So, does my heart, does my soul feel safe and seen with this person? The corollary pieces are, am I being someone with whom this person feels safe and seen? And the other corollary is, am I inspired by this person? Now, you might not be inspired by this person in the things that you have worked on cultivating. I'll just give you a little example. You know, talking about feelings is what I do. I'm the feelings channel, and that's what I do. And I've spent my life, my professional life, my work life, so much of my creative life reflecting on feelings. So I pictured that I would find somebody who did that too. Well, my husband does not like what he's great at. He is great at holding my feelings and reflecting my feelings. If he couldn't, this would not work. But that's not what inspires me about him. What inspires me about him the most is he's not afraid of love. And I could be really afraid of love. There is a quality of goodness that runs so deep in him that I can rely on and trust, even when I'm not feeling that way myself. That goodness, that availability for love, that deep, deep, beautiful, gorgeous commitment, and that love, that love, those things inspire me. I wasn't expecting that those would be the things that I would exactly find, but God knows those were the things that I needed the most. So this inspiration thing can have different dimensions to it. That's just my story. So, okay, now I want to go back to this North Star question, and I can't tell you, to me, it's a big change. It's a huge change. I just gave a talk to people and I presented this, and somebody raised his hand and he said, oh my God, that is so different than the way that I have always thought you approach the search for love. That's so different from what I pictured. I'm really afraid I'm not going to be able to do that because it's so different. And I said, you're right. You're absolutely right. And that is why it is everything that I teach asks you to have a learning partner. That is why I created my Deeper Dating Intensive, which I'm actually going to be interviewing for the next round of it. And you can learn more about that at the deeperdatingintensive.com. In everything I teach, I have you have a learning partner, or I ask you to get a coach, a deeper dating mentor, or to work with me in the intensive, because this stuff is so counter. And I have worlds of resources. I have my book. I have my online course. I have 200 something podcast episodes. So there's such ample opportunity to learn and get support for this very new way of doing it, because it's different. It's really different. So I want to tell you why I think it matters so much. It matters because it aligns you completely differently. It makes the most important thing the most important thing. We lead with immediate attraction. And yeah, you have to be attracted to someone to have a relationship work. I'm not saying be with someone because they just seem like a good person and they inspire you and you feel safe and seen with them. They might be a dear friend. There has to be attraction. Attraction can grow. We don't get taught how much attraction can grow, although that's really true. But so yes, attraction has to be there. But imagine leading with this question. You meet someone and you notice, how do they talk to you? What's the tone of their voice like? How do they interact with you? What do you feel? Not the part of you that's like clicking the abacus in the top of your head about how worthy you are and how worthy they are, but more like down deep in the weather inside. What do you feel? Do you feel safe? Do you feel actually obviously in the beginning, you're not going to feel fully seen, but that the capacity for that kind of holding and seeing is there. If you don't feel that, pretty quickly, assume it's the wrong place to be. Truly. And you could see how much time you will save with that, because this is the most important thing. And when you're with someone, instead of putting all the other things first, if you put this first of all, you develop a sense of dignity. This is something I say a lot. You develop a spine, a backbone, because you are honoring your deep inner self. And as I say, in nature, creatures that don't have a spine need an armor. If you don't have that backbone of saying, I'm going to lead with who I really am. I'm going to be me. I am going to be me. And then I'm going to see, do I feel safe and seen with this person? And if the answer is yes, then you have a backbone, which means you're flexible. You have a backbone, which means you're vulnerable. And you have a backbone, which means you don't put up with crap. You are dignifying yourself. For everything else, you will be living from your armor. And here's the deal. When you live from your armor, you will not radiate your beauty. So the people who could really see you won't recognize you as quickly, because you won't be beaming yourself. I cannot tell you how true and how important and how significant this is. And I think that you can see from what I'm saying how this is a path to deep, deep healing. So the other piece of this is that you have a superpower. And that superpower is when you go on a date and you lead with who you are. And if the person feels generally safe, if they don't feel safe, you do not need to do this. But if they don't feel unsafe, and let me take a pause here, say what some of those unsafe things are. They're a little judgmental. They're insulting. When you check down with your weather inside, you feel cold and empty no matter how hot or sexy they look. You don't feel seen. You don't have a visceral sense of feeling safe. They fluctuate from nice to not nice. In those cases, take that in and know it's not going to be the right place for you. And I'll give you a kind of formula, a research-connected formula in a minute. But in that case, you don't need to. But your superpower. Let's say that it's someone who essentially you have this feeling of okayness with, or a feeling of safety with, or a feeling of like, yeah, this is a decent person. Lead with who you are. Show your heart, show your enthusiasm, be you. Let yourself like a little bit go out on a limb and say, that's what I'm doing on this date. That's the purpose of dating, is not to fudge, not to hedge, but to be you and to see with whom you feel safe and seen. Talk about speeding the path. That's why it's the North Star question. So, assuming those things are all there, you lead with who you are, and you also work on making them feel safe and seen. And let me tell you, that is an aphrodisiac. It truly is. And you'll learn something huge about this person by doing that. You will learn, do they give it back to you, or do they just drink it in and milk it? And if it's the latter, you've learned something really important. You might want to give them another chance. You might want to give them a little prod to see if they, shift in that way. But essentially, when you do that, if you find you're just being milked and they're not giving it back to you, that is how they have curated their life. And that is how, for the near future, at least that's how they're going to continue to curate their life. And that is not what you want. But if you lead with that quality, you will entice and touch and interest people deeply. You will be beautiful by doing that. And if you find the other person gives that back to you, you have set the stage. You have set so much of a more wonderful stage for the birth of a potential new relationship. It's a superpower to do that. And the research backs that up too. So let them feel safe and seen if you feel like they are safe enough to do that with, and watch what happens. It really is a superpower. And if you find someone who has curated their life in such a way that they plan to give that back, they would have done it before you if you didn't start, maybe even. That's home. That's where you want to build the home of your future in this world. So you can see that it's a very, very different process. So I want to offer you this little research piece that until this moment right now, I never thought of in this way, but I think it's really interesting. And here's what it is. When my private practice, I now only see people who work with me in the intensive, but for many decades, I had a private practice. And so people contact me and they say, do you know any good therapists? And I tell them who I know. And this is what I say to them. I say, the research shows that if in the first few sessions, the first session, maybe the second, maybe the third, you don't have this gut level feeling of this person can help me. Not this person is skilled and appropriate and experienced, but this chemistry feeling of this person can help me. You will waste time, and you're not with the therapist where you're going to experience the greatest transformation. So you want somebody with whom you feel that chemistry. That's the safe and seen question. If you don't feel it early on, God knows if you feel unsafe and unseen, that ain't good. You don't want that. You do not want that. Period. The end. Save yourself time. If you feel like there's a potential or you're just not sure yet and it's possible, go through a few more dates. By then you will know. But if you don't feel that visceral feeling, that's going to be your future with this person. And that is the tremendous, tremendous, tremendous power that you have in looking for love, is that you can define your future by saying, I am only looking for this. That's a tremendous power and a tremendously wonderful thing. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is this other promise that I made, which is that, and I guess I can't make a complete promise, but that this will lead you to a more secure attachment style. And here's why that is true. As long as you are trying to prove yourself, like in this kind of like unbalanced search, which, dear God, I know so well, of looking for love, hoping someone's right, not being sure of yourself, needing to prove, just that off balance feeling. When you come from there, your deep insides are unprotected. You're not protecting your, let's say, inner child. You're just taking care of yourself. And those deep, tender parts of you are not being taken care of. You're living armor. You're living from a place of armor, and your beautiful, tender inner self is not being seen. When you make this your question, that deep down part of you is going to say, oh, I'm being loved. I am being protected. I am being held. And that is when you are creating a perfect circle, because you're coming from the center of your circle. And this is how we build a secure attachment style, especially for people who have an anxious attachment style, which is often a byproduct of a deep gift of great sensitivity. We need to know that our spine is there, that our guide, who is us, the adult who's going out on the date, is going to make that their central question. And when that happens, you stop being as afraid of rejection and you develop a more secure attachment style over time. That's why this way of dating not only speeds your path to love, but it heals your life, which is an amazing thing. And if this calls to you, you can learn so much more from first my free ebook, which is kind of the heart and soul of the 5 biggest teachings I teach. And you could just go to deeperdatinggifts.com to pick that up. And then, there's a world of resources to guide you on this very step-by-step path toward healing and toward love. So just to say something else about the rejection piece, when you make this your question, Your fear of rejection will take a little bit of a back seat. It will be less important because you are going into that date with an agenda. And the agenda is, I'm going to lead with who I am if this person feels safe. I'm going to notice if I feel safe and seen. And I'm going to offer that back and see what happens. Just think about doing it that way. How that's so counter to what we get taught. And I imagine that many of you do pieces of this already, or maybe you do a lot of it, but having a formula, having a central organizing question, having a North Star question is like having a map. So this is transformative stuff. It has changed my life. It has changed the lives of countless people. I get emails and messages and responses from people in my intensives all the time talking about how this has changed their life and in so many cases led to beautiful love. So if this speaks to you, try it on. Make this North Star question your North Star question. And I have a request for you. Write to me and let me know how that is and how it goes for you. If you join my mailing list, you'll have the access to write to me. If you get my free ebook, if you go to my website and join my mailing list, you will have access to be able to let me know. And I want to hear. Thank you so much for listening. I'm excited for you as you take this on, and I'm excited to hear your experiences. And I look forward to connecting on the next episode of the Deeper Dating Podcast.
And that's it for today's episode of Deeper Dating. Be sure to go to deeperdatingpodcast.com as Ken has a few more gifts for you. Then join us on the next episode.